To begin this program, I want to start with work that I have already done in my book, which I call The Gathered Words of Mulberry, Texas. We will call this program Cyclone, or the historic Mulberry Cyclone in 1919.
When the roses bloom again beside the river, and the robin redbreast sings his melody.
The book begins with a chapter heading titled Mulberry Only is Home, which is true for many of us. The experience of families living in Mulberry in 1919 will be featured in this program. They were the Bramletts, the Canes, and the Parkses. Myrtle said the night of the storm they would have made it to a cyclone cellar if Mr. Alva had not stopped to blow out all the lights and close the windows. They lay in a ditch as the storm passed over and their house was destroyed. This house was built by a prominent landowner in Mulberry, Mr. C.W. Parks, for his daughter, Miss Ailey, who had married George Davidson. They left that house because of the way the sand blew there, and for many years walked alone along the roads of Mulberry as George's blindness came on. The next few still photographs will give a sense of what life in Mulberry was like prior to 1919, until that fateful day occurred. Imagine now that you have been in Mulberry Bottom and are returning up the hill toward the location which would have been where the little town of Mulberry was.
Said whenever he'd leave of an evening for take the money out of his store, he'd just take it, he had it in a pouch, and he'd just take it and throw it under the building. Now that tub down there is the one that...
It's right at the bottom of where Lazy lived.
Yeah, and she was the one that fell out of that tree. Yeah, she did. She fell out of the tree. They said when the clump hit the ground, they went to see what it was, and it was her. Yeah, this is a Mulberry Cyclone. Greg, I want you to look. Ida Price. Here. Lafey and Ida.
We will look up the hillside where the Price family home was located that night. Anne Vaughn, a sister of Mrs. Bramlett, had spent the night with the Price family. Rootless in Mulberry, she had looked into her coffee grounds and said, "I see nothing but blood in Mulberry. It will happen." Before the Civil War, this very location had been home of the Lightfoots and their prominent relatives, including Sylvanus Reed, who in 1884 had had a steam-powered gin located on this lot. Lightfoot descendants here became prominent women in Fannin County history, married, and went on to own land across Mulberry. My book tells their story, and you may consult it. Here you see a remnant of the gin. Then a weekend archaeologist started to dig with his metal detector and found a remnant of a 19th century stove made by the Charter Oak and Range Company of St. Louis, Missouri. And this woman's ornament, found 99 years after the storm. Did it belong to Sarah Lightfoot, to one of the Reed daughters, or to Ida Price? Imagine my surprise in 2014 to find a doll's head dated around 1900 in the sand. Here we see a blown away spelling book found in an orchard after the storm. Its owner's name was in Mr. Edgar Price's ledger in 1914. Mandy and Mamie were sisters, and Mamie married Ira Wisely.
Next morning after the storm, well, we made that tour and come down this back road, would come down across Caney Creek, on down
Into Mulberry.
to Mulberry in a wagon, looking at the
And everything that happened. The roads must have been full of people.
It's full. There, man, everybody was cheering her out.
Ira's father, Fred, had warned the previous week in church, if Mulberry people do not change their ways, something terrible will happen. Boardwalk staves in 19th century fences became, during the storm, projectiles. One reached Mr. Wisely's neck.
Where were you the night of the storm?
House, across the hall, and I run across the hall. We had coil lamps from there.
So you all didn't go to the cellar?
We had never been used to it, but of course it's over with right then. And Mother got her ankle hurt. She was sitting in a chair out little in front of the fireplace. And the room that we was in, all of it went away.
You mean it was blown off?
That was in the fireplace, and we were just sitting in that room with the end out. Along about midnight, I think.
But you were up at that time?
But had gone to bed, and so I heard the roaring and jumped up and ran across there.
Right.
But it just so fast, you know.
Now your sister who was killed in the storm was Mamie, and she and Ira Wisely were living
Together, and they had a little baby. I don't remember how, not a little baby, is a little,
about a year old.
well, somewhere along there.
Now where were they living? There next
They
to the
had-
store? Opposite the Wisely's place?
Yeah, right across there in that house where my daddy bought that little, and they had a storm house right at the end of the porch. But Ira went out to sea, and it was just so near, he just run back, fell across the bed, and put his arms around Mamie and the baby. I don't know if they found the baby, and it just is muddy, just a little hole, like it'd been in a hog wash. And Mamie had a 2x4 through her back. And Ari had his arm was broken up. Oh, I can remember it if it was yesterday.
Of course, you went out to see it the next morning.
We started that night, and we got nearly to the corner down there. And Mother's leg ankle got hurt and bad. We had to turn around and go back. Well, they had all the dead people down there in that little house. Right there close to, where that little house is now, down there by Doug is. Petty's lived there. And Petty's was in the storm house, so they put all the dead people in there. And I almost got there once, and somebody saw me and didn't let me go, of course. I've never been back home since I pulled the
you've never
doors
been?
due.
Right.
Never wanted to go back. When I walked out the back door, I pulled the door to, and I've never wanted to go back.